The At Your End Step podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net and search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
Dave.
Hey.
And Brian.
Hi.
As our usual guests for our set review shows. We have another fun-filled episode with you, and it's very filled. It's very large, hopefully, by this assumption. What? It's filled with content.
It's a palooza!
Yes. We haven't gotten to that part yet.
Why do you guys not understand this yet?
I thought it was an extravaganza.
No, okay, palooza, extravaganza, it's all awesome. Awesome.
Correct. We'll get there. Don't worry.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just excited.
I know, I understand.
So,
you should
so
be
many
excited.
dragons? I'm like Sarkin over here.
There are many dragons. We probably won't be talking about many of them, but...
You think he just walks around, just high-fives people all day?
Who's that weird guy? I don't know.
He knows all the dragons' name. Hey, what's up, Vinny? Looking good. Like,
It's a cruel fate, though, because they're like, who
finger guns.
I feel like I've never seen that guy before.
who the hell's that guy? Never heard of him.
Man, he's the Sarkon.
Anyway, so we do, of course, want to, get through all of our set review stuff. So we'll definitely be doing that. And but we wanted to, start off the show with the big announcement we have, which you might have seen or might not have heard of. It depends. Of course, our sponsor is Comic Town, like you heard in the beginning of the show. But we are here to announce that they are actually going to have a what they kind of call a road to Origins. Correct?
You're just bad at talking this up. It's like we were proud to announce the Comic Town Road to Origins.
I'm sorry, I don't make funny noises with my mouth.
Funny noises. You gotta listen to the Morning Zoo more often.
Oh, do I?
Morgan, make sure to put the echo effect on that.
Yeah,
Whoa!
He'll put it in after.
I probably won't.
Come on.
Anyway, so basically, all F&Ms in April and May are going to be open trials. So Star City Games open trials where you can get free entry into an open and then get a buy at an open as well, which is pretty awesome. So it's 9 total open trials.
Is there an open that they can use those free open entries
There,
for?
in fact, is. There's Cleveland, which will be
I think that was
coming
the one
up.
we were talking about.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think that's the one we're talking about.
That does, but we haven't bring up Cleveland because it does branch this time period when it's important because it is a part of the road to Origins.
Get to the good stuff.
Which is the other one. So this basically is trying to amp up people to get ready to go to the Invitational as well as the Open that's going to be held at Origins Gaming Convention in Columbus, Ohio. So there's also going to be Spring States, which will be standard day on one day, and then there's also going to be a modern Spring States, which will be on the next day, and it's going to be April 11th and 12th. And then there's also going to be a modern IQ hosted by Comic Town on May 17th. So we have open trials, we have SCG Cleveland, we have the States, and then we have the actual IQ, and those are all to get you prepped for Origins in the summer.
Comic Town is bringing you 3 distinct chances to qualify for the Invitational.
Yes.
And if you don't qualify for the Invitational, they're trying to give you 9 chances at free entry into a premier event in your backyard.
Correct.
This is, I don't know if you like value. If you're a listener of this show, I guarantee you like value.
One would hope.
You're going to be getting value here. You're going to be getting great value out of your F&Ms. What is entry for an open?
$50, sir.
Oh. Sounds like I'd rather just win a free one. How's that sound? I think we're all pretty excited for this. I got a thumbs up from Morgan. That doesn't work on radio.
Yeah.
When has that ever stopped us? We don't work on radio, but
Sorry.
Yet we're
radio's
here.
the first thing that popped in my head.
yet we're here.
Can we get an audible thumbs up? I don't even know how that would sound.
No. It's not gonna. It's a spring sound, I guess. Maybe, or that might be something else. I'm not sure.
That's not going to help you on the road to Origin.
But also adequate for this announcement. It is that exciting. See how we can go there, not go there. I enjoy this.
His girlfriend doesn't.
Anyway, So yeah, that's exciting. That's our big announcement.
He also drummed in the air once again, not visible.
You have to though. You can't just. I don't know. So
Get on my tempo, Morgan. Get on my tempo.
So now that we've announced this, obviously there's going to be more information that's going to come out on Comic Town Gaming Center's Facebook page. So you'll be able to find the events there once they are announced. So please follow them first, so that you will be alerted when they do announce these awesome events, and invited, of course.
Conveniently, Comic Town's pre-release is all, of course, this weekend. So if you want to do ask the man himself. Yes. You can also go this weekend, play in some sweet events, and get your dates ready. Go up there, sync your Google Calendar. That sounds like a Morgan thing to do.
Yeah, 100%. And be like us and try to get cards before the Invitational. So we'll go ahead. There isn't really any community topics. We'll touch briefly on the 2 GPs and the Open that were on happened over the weekend, and then we'll dive straight into the set review. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about competitive. So there was GP Auckland, which had a whopping 383 players.
It's like a Columbus PTQ from last year.
It was won by Teruya Kakume, which is, that's how I'm going to butcher that, but poor Japanese man's name.
It sounds good.
Yeah. And this is his second GP title in 2 years. And it was a limited GP, so there's really not much to talk about it.
I thought it was pretty interesting that Wizards decided to have just double limited GPs at the end here. Like, Standard wasn't going to bring much new. You probably could have had like a Modern here; it would have been fine. But like, just limited last hurrah for this format, and obviously probably didn't get quite the number of players they were hoping for in Auckland. But
yeah, that would have been a good, would have been a fantastic GP to fly to. I tell you what, guys, we messed up. Moving on, GP Cleveland was over the weekend. It had a total amount of 1,844 players. One of them being our very own Mike.
I did it. I went to it. I did it.
So the actual top 8 was pretty good, actually. We have notable. Does he do anything but go to GPs at all? Like, I'm talking about like sleep or eat or anything like that. Christian Calcano was here in the top 8. Yuya Watanabe.
You could have said the same thing for Yuya, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
Calcano's just trying to lock up his GP spot for Worlds.
Yeah, fair enough. Ross Miriam. Andrew Cuneo and Gerard Fabiano, because makes sense. Playing like loose Sultai draft decks, from what I saw.
Yeah, he decided to take a week off in Miami, like let some other people have some fun, and he's like, "All right, yeah, guys, I'm gonna win now."
I just choose to believe that he prefers Cleveland as a city to Miami. I gotta believe that in my heart of hearts.
So even with those top names, relative unknown Bill Sang defeated Jake Mondello in the finals of the top 8. So congrats to Bill Sang. Now, you said that you actually battled him in your...
I did.
Was it your first pod?
It was my first pod.
Yeah.
So I day 2'd, guys. I day 2'd.
Yep.
This is my first GP day 2, so pretty proud of myself. Not that proud, though, because I definitely lost my last round and missed on cash by 17 places, so hooray! But yeah, I played him round 1 of the first draft pod, and guess what? He drafted aggressive Active Treason decks all day. It was pretty interesting because he was so the way the pairings work, you can get paired against anybody in your pod. Him and I were left and right of each other, so it was really interesting because we both ended up in white. Like I took a Tauren Elemental pick 1, and he passed me the Scale Guard, the Tapper. And I was like, oh man, I thought that was a big signal. And it was a big signal. He started taking all of the red. But in the last pack, when things came back around, he went back into white. So it was really interesting. We both he played like red-white, and I played blue-white. And we both thought game 1 we were missing a color. Like he assumed I was just not hitting red, and I just assumed he was not hitting blue. Like it was like the way we had drafted. So it was really funny. Like and he's like after the games, like he was really friendly. He pulled out his board. And he's like, yeah, I thought I was like doing really good. This Jeskai Ascendancy came back around. I was like, oh man, I can just cut you. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't even care. I passed it the first time. So it's like it was really interesting. But
it's awesome.
Sadly, I flooded a fair amount, and his deck was very aggressive and definitely got Active Treason multiple times. Woo. So then as I'm driving home and I'm reading watching this on the Twitter coverage in the finals, and him just like Active Treasoning everybody, I'm like, yep.
I know how that feels.
He had a particularly brutal one in the finals where he took the... You're going to have to help me out. The Avalanche Tusker, yeah.
That's pretty bad. It's not something you really want to be treasonous towards.
It was really interesting that LSV actually sort of like slammed the guy on Twitter afterwards. He's like, this proves that people do not pay enough attention to sideboarding in Limited. He's like, your opponent showed you Active Treason and you keep Avalanche Tusker in the deck? And it's like, man, like that's... like it's true though. Like you just didn't, you don't think about it. So, but yeah, I went to the first draft and I was pretty disappointed. I thought my deck was okay, and I've been taught by everybody now that if you like your deck, it's a bad deck, and I liked my deck, so I quickly hated my second deck, and I went 2-1. So I lost.
Yeah, I pinned you for a 1-2 in the first draft.
Yeah,
after you said my deck's insane.
Yeah, it was just bad. So, but like I played some pretty like impressive players. Like the person I beat in the last round of the first draft was Eric Blagan.
Yeah.
Like it was like odd people to see battling for the not be 0-3 in their first draft, and then I played Alex Mazzelton day one. I got to play him, and I lost to Morgan Chang in the last round, which was pretty brutal. But just like
thank you, Morgan Chang for bringing respect to all Morgans around the world.
I thought you said. Never mind.
Yeah.
I thought you said Chang Yu, and I was just like, dear Lord.
Would be terrible. Thank you.
So it was fun though. It was I was telling Dave that like it felt nice to like I put a lot of practice into the format. I felt really good all day. Day one, knowing what I was playing around. Like the 2 decks I lost to because I went 7-2. I was 7-1, so like I didn't like barely make day 2. Like I got there, But the 2 decks I lost to, I felt were much better card quality than me. They were both decks playing my colors, and like the one deck had a splash for 1,000,000 Bathe in Dragonfires, which I did not have access to, and the other guy had double Avon Surveyor and a Tassiger. So it was just like cards I didn't have access to. So I felt like overall I played as best played the pool as best I could. So I wish the first draft would have gone a little bit better, but overall like I felt really confident. I said it before. I said it when we did the GPT. I love time drafts, and it was really cool there. There were a bunch of errors with the draft though.
Oh, really?
They had a bunch of damaged product, and they had like 4 or 5 judges at individual tables who were now counting off their own clock instead of the main clock. So after a second pack in the second draft, we had to stop for almost 5 minutes to let everyone catch up. But they had packs that were actually just damaged, like they got crushed. So
that's weird.
Yeah,
that is weird.
So it was a little strange.
So how did that work? So if they're stamped, it's stamped product, right?
Yes.
So like it was like after they did all the stamping and everything,
Yep.
then they got crushed?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
So
that's weird.
one of the guys that played in my first pod, I was talking to him afterwards. He's the one who noticed the pack was damaged. The Fate Reforged pack was, but it had a Monastery Mentor in it, and he was like, so he argued with the judge to be allowed to keep the Monastery Mentor, and they let him have it.
Huh.
So I thought that was sort of interesting. Like, hey, no, like I shouldn't. Like his argument being like, I shouldn't have a weaker pool because you guys messed up on the product. So they let him have it, but they still switch out the pack. So it was pretty interesting.
I mean, whatever. It's a weird situation. It can really go either way in that particular case.
I don't know that I've ever heard of that happening before.
It was
That's
really interesting.
weird.
So, but I got some sweet stamp cards. So now Dave won't be the only one playing his douchey stamp cards.
Hey man, it's not douchey.
Did you?
Oh yeah. Hey, I got these Nylee's Disciples. I can use any Nylee's Disciples, but I'll use the one with these stamps.
Of course, I'm going to use that.
So, and of course, I am too. Like, I'm going to treasure cruise my stamped ones. I'm going to treasure cruise. Or I'm going to use my fetches that are stamped now. Like, I'm going to town.
Oh, what fetches did you get to the red?
I got a Pluto Delta and I don't remember. Maybe Wooded Foothills.
You're going to find a reason to play Torrent Elemental and Standard.
Oh, of course, that too. That too.
They're great for running the humble brags. They're like, oh man, what is that stamp from? They're like, just day 2 GB Cleveland. You know?
God, there's so much dirt on my shoulder right now.
Yeah. What up, peasant?
But it was really fun, and I want to say, like, I got to see so many people. Like, I loved having one this close. I got to see a ton of people that, like, even like some of the guys that were local, but just stuff that, people that I just got to see. Some people from our local cube group that we haven't seen in forever. It was really fun.
Yeah, I think like limited GPs in general just bring out everybody because like you don't even have to have a deck or have like really any practice.
Yeah, you can just
kind of show up and you just play. Yeah. So. Yeah, limited GPs are fun. I mean, any GPs are fun, but I particularly like limited ones.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone, but I'm glad you had fun, and I'm glad you day 2'd.
I am too. So now it's cash. That's where we're at on to next year.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about Dallas. So this was the last Open before Dragons comes out, excuse me, and it was won by Michael Miller, piloting Sultai Control, which someone boldly stated in I think it was Brad Nelson said that it's just the best deck in Standard currently. I think so.
It's either the best deck or it's just the worst deck that does well. I can't tell. We definitely saw like Gerard win week 1 with Sultai Control, so this is the last week of this particular format.
Yeah,
and wins again. So I think there's something to be said for that. But I mean, I've seen a lot of other players like play it to not.
And it does nothing.
Yeah, it just does nothing. It's just really weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Jim Davis also was in the top 8. He lost in the finals, but he did lock his spot for the Season 1 point leader for the Players' Championship at the end of the year. So good for him. Awesome.
Yeah, he needed like a decent finish, and I think
Yeah.
second place is decent
It's
enough.
pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's pretty decent. I'm not gonna lie there.
I really like his list too.
Yeah, it's an
His,
interesting evolution on red white aggro. He just adds blue just for Mance Rider and one treasure creature.
Yeah, I saw that. I really enjoyed. Looking at his list as well because I feel like Manus Rider is just such a powerful card. Even though it was like the best again, Brad Nelson definitely said in his article today it was like the best worst card that currently sees play in Standard.
Yeah, I think, and of course, like the format is going to change from here, so I don't know how
100%.
much value analyzing what the actual list is. But it is interesting to note that by playing the blue, he had to give up on Chain of the Rocks, which a lot of people consider to be one of, if not the best deck in the red-white decks. So it's interesting.
The best card.
Best card. Yeah.
Best card in the deck. Sorry.
I'm not playing Charizard here or anything like that.
I mean, I can see that, and as we'll talk about in the set review, when Dragons comes out, Chain of the Rocks actually loses a lot of value just for the sheer fact that there's a lot more cheap removal that's going to be introduced into the standard, which is great. So, and something like Valorous Dance in combination with other cheap removal can help lessen that impact as far as losing Chain of the Rocks. It was what I've come to find while playing Jeskai. So, yeah.
I think even back when I was playing like Big Boros, like Chain of the Rocks is a sweet card. It answers a lot of things, but in a deck that one of its major avenues to win is burn spells, having a removal spell that is not also a burn spell, or in the case of Valorous Dance, doesn't protect your ways of dealing damage, still feels really awkward. Like when you have it on time, or like you get to play like Rival Master and Chain of the Rocks the same turn, it's amazing. But as a top deck, like oh man, they have a Siege Rhino. What do I have top deck here? Like, well, a removal spell's good. You probably would rather just top deck like a Mantis Rider instead, or something that's a threat, or something that has the ability to kill the opponent as well. So I don't think losing Chain of the Rocks obviously is a loss of power, but I also don't feel like you would feel that bad about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I almost want to say that, like the format has almost evolved to the point where like having Chain of the Rocks may actually be a liability because now everybody like red white is now a tier 1 deck and people are packing the erases and the Glare of Heresies on the board and they're ready for it. So
Abs an advantage.
Yep. I'm sure a lot of people have that advantage.
the Dromoka advantage,
Or the Dromoka advantage. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
So I know we don't want to talk too much about this standard because it's lame duck.
Yeah.
However, we went from 1 week where Green White Devotion was the most powerful deck we've ever seen to it taking 32nd.
Yeah. People were prepared.
I think it's just not as many good players played it this
I
week.
mean, yeah, Sam Black was in Cleveland, so maybe that's it. But I don't know. Like there was a bunch of players too who hadn't done well in any professional capacity in a very long time who end up in the top 32, top 8 even of a GP with that deck. And for it to go from top 8 to a GP with 2 lists in the top 8, two or three more in the top 16, with X more in the top 32, and to not even put up a top 16 at the next major standard event, it seems like, is it the format adjusting? Was Green White really that much of a flash in the pan?
Well, it did go 10-0 until the 32 guy. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened to him. He just
But
wheels
sure, but
came
even
off.
so, like where are the other ones?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? That's not a deck that should be going like Mono Red's the kind of deck that I feel like goes 10-0 and has the rails fall off. But this deck's super consistent. So did it run into bad matchups? Because as we could tell, there weren't a lot of bad matchups the week before. Like what was it? It's so just interesting to me to see that deck. People like that deck. I've seen a lot of people around here starting to build that deck because for some reason, Life Gain appeals to them or whatever else appeals to them. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's gone or anything. I mean, I think it actually gains a few tools from Dragons, and I mean, a majority of the deck is a majority of the deck is based off of Theros block cards. So that's where most of the power is coming from anyway. So I don't think it's gone by any.
no,
means.
I don't think so. I think it's interesting to see that drastic of a fall. Like
Yeah.
looking at the decks that are even like in the top 8 or top 16, I don't see anything that's like a drastic like, oh, I have to beat Green White. But you see more Jeskai, which I think we said we agreed like Jeskai is a way to beat that deck. So you see things like that. but it still, I don't know. It just seems odd to me for it to just not put anything up.
Yeah, watching coverage, there's a lot more like green-black constellation.
Yeah, I saw that as well, which is also good against it.
It's good against it, and it's not saying that. And what the best one here is 24, but there could just been more of that in the field. So
It's just something I thought was interesting. Just something where we were like, please, no more of this deck, and it was like, okay, cool.
All right, no more. Which
It's like,
granted,
man, I should have asked for something a lot better than no more green-white devotion.
yeah, probably. Well, that's it for competitive. Let's go ahead and get to why you're probably really listening to the show today. Let's go to the set review.
So this is probably a good place to hit pause for a second, use the bathroom, get some coffee.
I mean, they can bring us into the bathroom. It's fine.
It's a little weird.
I mean, we're a podcast. I'm sure. I don't know what people do when they listen to us. It could be a lot of things. We don't have control of that.
So you're saying we should be like cheering them on, like, hey, man, you poop.
I mean,
We're proud of you.
You know what? There might be one person that actually gets that and listens to that and goes, okay. It'll be truly, truly inspirational to them.
That'll be the best, ever, like, testimonial we get. It's like,
Yeah.
I was constipated, then that trans stuff gave me the power to poop. Just do it.
You're welcome. So what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go by color and then alphabetically through the cards that we want to discuss. Personally, we've cultivated a list of cards, so not a lot of limited cards to be really discussed or limited focused cards. Mainly constructed impacting cards are what we're going to be talking about, but other things will be peppered in, of course. And then we'll go into that, and then we typically do our top 5 and then a sleeper for the set. So we'll basically go ahead and get started unless anyone has any disagreements.
Oh, not yet.
Oh, okay. We'll wait for that. All right. I'll go ahead and actually start off. I think I should be able to read off our list and then read the cards. I think I should be fine. But we'll start off with...
We can do it, Morgan. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. You guys are... All right. I'm going to put you guys in the hands of Mike and Dave rotating between reading the cards. So I'm pretty comfortable with their ability to read, but we'll see.
you sound like it.
Yeah.
Aren't you the one that normally messes up people's names?
Correct. 100%.
I was telling Alex Magelton that you have struggled through his name many times, and it was pretty funny.
I'm glad you guys laughed at me.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you.
Was Marcio Carvalho at this?
No,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Was Caballo? Hey, I can say it.
If I would have seen
No
him,
practice that
if I would have
time.
seen him, I would have gone up and asked him to say his name for the camera and just be like,
And he would have said Carvalho and be like, "Oh man, he was right the whole time."
He definitely 100% would have said that. All right. Anyway, the first card, Anafenza, Kin Tree Spirit. So, Mike, go ahead and read what Anafenza does.
Anafenza, Kin Tree Spirit, is a 2/2 creature for double white. So whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, bolster 1.
Yep.
She's pretty simple. She's dead now. She's a spirit, so she has lost a little bit of power from back, from her con days. But this creature's interesting. Like a 2/2 for 2 is not exactly that exciting, but that bolster ability means that every creature coming in after her, or even herself, is going to get more powerful. So she's just a value machine. Whether or not she's a good enough value machine, I'm not really sure. I mean, I think in draft this card is going to be very, very good. But in standard, I don't even know if there's a white weenie deck, let alone a deck that could abuse this without tokens. Like, obviously, if it said, like, token creature, then you'd be like, man, hoarding outburst all day.
Yeah, that would be completely and utterly broken. So, important things to note, it's a legendary creature, Spirit Soldier. And just fun Vorthos stuff, Anafenza was martyred for continuing to practice Abzan ways.
She is literally Joan of Arc.
Correct.
Like, if you look at the way she's dressed and how she come back, she is Joan of Arc.
Okay.
Okay, good.
That's a nice
just,
face.
I just wanted you to admit it. That's
Mike
all.
putting his degree to work.
I'm not a history major.
Well, okay, that's fine. You're right.
I feel like this card is like just not good enough. Like it's right there. It's like I feel like it needs an ability like flying or first strike or something to make the double white worth it.
Yeah,
Like,
double
it's
white
right there.
is pretty restrictive. Now, this does have certain synergies with another powerful, low-cost permanent that is also in white that has suddenly come to being very popular with which is Mastery of the Unseen. Because Manifest definitely triggers this.
It does. They're not tokens.
And it's cute.
That's interesting. I almost wonder if like they added the non-token
Because
Like,
it
if
would
it
be
was
completely broken?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or maybe, I don't know, but it's a cool card for sure.
Yeah, I think it's something. I think you'll see it pop up from now and then. I don't know. This is the kind of card that we could very well see. Like, if we talk about like Battle for Zendikar, like if allies return, like this seems like the kind of card where like allies would be like, oh yeah, we like bolstering as well as kicking all these other things. So it's just it's a cool card to like put in the back of your mind. This is in the set. Wait and see what else happens.
Yeah, the double white is a little awkward unless there is like a dedicated white weenie deck that comes up. So
That's true. All right, moving on. The next card we want to talk about is Erishin Foremost. Dave, take it away.
So Erishin Foremost is 1 white for a 2/2 double strike. It's a human warrior, and enters the battlefield trigger whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks. Another target warrior creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. So I don't think that this card is quite good enough for standard. However, if there is a warriors deck, it may want this card. And the card, I keep forgetting the name of this card.
Silverblade Paladin.
Silverblade Paladin. Yeah, I think that's the closest analog that we can look at. Now, I don't think it's as good as Silverblade Paladin. However, I think it's actually close. Obviously, being restricted to just warriors hurts it a lot in playability. But I mean, I'm just saying, if there is a warriors deck, I think this is a card that they may want.
I also think the double white is actually really restrictive here as well because I think the best warrior cards are black.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
true. Yeah, it would definitely have to be like a black white. Like I don't think you could afford
I'm sure the black
here.
white warrior decks is happy their 3-drop is double white and not double black. So I don't think this card is going to see play at all.
You can't pair this guy with an 8/8 from what I recollect, and I remember doing that.
Unless it's a warrior.
Is there an 8? Yeah.
Is a Tarkir a warrior?
Hold on here, wait. Doesn't Figure of Destiny become an 8/8? Is it Kithkin warrior?
I thought it was a spirit.
Yeah, it's
I thought it was a Spirit Warrior.
It's a spirit
I mean, it's like
warrior.
everything.
It's
right?
Spirit Warrior.
It's like
Boom, there you go.
Kithkin, Spirit,
All right,
Avatar.
so modern playable, sure.
Kithkin
No.
Spirit Warrior Avatar.
We did it.
No. Yeah, I don't think. I think I'm kind of there with Anafenza where I think this card is borderline playable. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see it played in certain decks, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Sure. Moving on. Artful Maneuver is the next card. Mike?
Artful Maneuver is a 2-mana instant, a white and a colorless. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and it has Rebound, meaning you get to cast it again on your next upkeep. I guess for limited, this card is okay. This is not really a significant trick, and if you ever read LSV's articles, like his review articles, I really enjoy them. Obviously, listen to ours first, and then maybe go read his.
Yes, correct.
But it was interesting to point out there's a couple of cards like this that are tricks, but then the Rebound becomes awkward because it's no longer a trick; it's a known quantity. Sometimes it lets you attack again for free, but other times, like your opponent will now have perfect information to play around it. So it's not really like you're getting 2 spells; it's a lot closer to you getting like a spell and a half. So it's fine. I don't think this is anywhere near standard playable, but it's an okay trick for limited.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty good for limited, and for standard, the thing that just jumps to mind is just heroic. But I think the heroic decks that are out there now have a lot better things to do.
A lot more. I mean,
like protection spells are a lot more important than +2/+2 on your guy,
and they're
or
more
I guess
efficient.
+3. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the key word for them is efficiency.
Right.
Well, speaking of protection spells, next card on our list is actually a protection spell. Center Soul.
All right, so Center Soul is another 2-mana instant, so 1 and a white. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and this one also has a Rebound.
And this falls into the same sort of thing that we talked about. It's more like a spell and a half.
Go ahead, Keller, because
I think it's worse
It could be.
because
They have a chance. You could just be like, oh, well.
they could kill it in response to the rebound, or you already have chosen your color, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter anymore.
Yeah.
But at least the +2/+2 at least lets you get an extra 2 damage on the next turn.
right.
I'll say on the flip side, though, you're going to cast this in response to a removal spell, right? So you're already getting 1-for-1 value right there. So the Rebound is just bonus. I mean, that's just like maybe it lets you attack.
I don't think we're arguing that. I think we're
Right.
arguing how many is it actually 2 spells with Rebound, or is it like a spell and a half?
Yeah, this I mean, obviously, if this were to be played in constructed, to be in competition with what's the +1/+1 counter?
Feet of Resistance.
Feet of Resistance, right?
Yeah.
So it's
It's not
better?
good enough until God's Willing's gone, anyways. But
Right.
100%.
Well, the heroic decks play Feet of Resistance.
maybe
one or two.
like as a one of,
Yeah.
kind of.
Right.
I will say the one thing that card does have compared to the other one is there is a chance to make your creature unblockable.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing, But again, you're talking about like hopefully, and you're talking about a format where you're hoping they're going to be monocolored. I mean, like, so I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of these tricks. It seems like the rebound cards in this set are a lot worse than the original rebound cards.
Yeah, I'm also not a huge fan of 2-mana spells to give protection from a color. They're a lot better when they're 1 mana.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's better than God's Willing or anything like that, but
Yeah, I'm just
I
always
think
like pointing out, these kind of spells.
No, I mean you
got
got
to
to keep it in the back of your head. You never know when you might need it for something specific, but this is pretty unexciting.
Yeah. Moving on, Dragon Hunter.
So Dragon Hunter is an interesting variant of like the Savannah Lions. It's a 2/1 for one white. Protection from dragons. It's also a warrior, I should note. It's a human warrior. But it has protection from dragons, and it can block dragons as though it had reach. This card's kind of interesting because it's just a 2/1, but if there's dragons, oh man, it can attack through dragons, which is kind of nice, and blocking them is okay. I mean, again, I think we talked about this before. Another 1-drop warrior in this format, like how many do you need before that deck is just blisteringly fast?
Well, maybe this lets you play more white instead of just black.
And maybe then the Erishan Foremost becomes playable. I'm not sure. Dave?
I was just going to mention that this is one guy that would not want to be Silumgar's friend.
No.
He was like,
Not at all.
no, it's all right, man.
I'm cool.
You stay over
I'm
there.
cool.
No, you take this other guy over here. He's
Also hilarious. So Wizards is like, oh yeah, we'll make this 1-drop white creature that just like can block all dragons, and then oh wait, did we play that one dragon that has protection from white? Oh, oh no.
Awkwardly, this still dies to the other Silumgar.
Yeah.
Protection for
Yeah.
dragons. Oh, still dead.
It drifts the death. It just drifts over.
I just love how they're just printing Savannah Lions all willy-nilly now. They're like, yeah, whatever, we'll just throw some ability
You
on
get
there.
a
Yeah.
2/1,
rare.
and you get a 2/1. Interesting enough, this is the third white 2/1. So now you have 12.
Oh, there's like
White
a million
2/1s.
of them now. Like you had the
Well, no,
green-white
but-
hybrid
but-
one.
No, we're saying in standard. That's
In
not
standards,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So we have that critical mass. Typically, you want 12 2-power 1-drops for any sort of like super fast aggro deck.
It feels like you're still missing like a Brave the Elements or something.
Yeah.
Some sort of critical spell to let them really get through, though.
Yeah,
I think
I
Rush
agree.
of Battle's going to do it.
Probably not. Probably not good enough. But man, I just wish that we could just have a Brave the Elements. It would work so well. You're in the sand. You'd really want no. All right. Moving on, we have Hidden Dragon Slayer. Now this is the first in the Megamorphin Power Rangers. if you know what that means, it's a cycle of rare Megamorphs that'll have a effect when they're flipped up. So this one is a 2/1, a lifelinker that you can play for two. What? You're all shaking my head. Oh, because I skipped you guys. I'm sorry. I get so excited. I'm really excited that I got to say Megamorphin Power Rangers.
Once we get to the first good card, you're like, all right, guys, I'll take it from here. Don't worry about it.
Sorry. Those other cards were just as important. Anyway, so 2/1 for 1 and a white. He is a human warrior, and he just has lifelink on his own. And then when you Megamorph him for 2 and a white, he when he's turned face up, you destroy a target creature with power 4 or greater. An opponent controls, so he's a Smite the Monstrous. So all of the cycle seems relatively playable, if situational.
I agree that most of the cycle seems playable. I think this is the least playable out of all of them.
Sure.
You're getting a Child of Night. So if you look at the rest of them, like as a 2-mana creature, the rest of them have like pretty, and we'll get to these cards, but the rest of them have evasion that is a little more realistic. And then you have this guy who has lifelink. So as a 2/1 for 2, again, Child of Night is not where you want to be. And then it's a 5-mana Smite the Monstrous. Yes, you got a 3/2 lifelink out of it, but you've invested how much time doing it? Like, I don't know. I don't think I'm ever really that happy to kill like a Siege Rhino with this because I don't feel like I've gotten anywhere.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. Like, I would not be surprised to see this show up in sideboards for, against decks like Green-White Devotion. This kills Apollo Chronos. It kills Whisperwood Elemental. I don't know. I mean, the morph has to be really good to make it into constructed. So
Right.
and I mean a 2/1 lifelinker for 2 is not the worst. Like we have a couple of 2-power, 2-mana lifelinkers in standard already. So I don't know. This guy.
Are you comparing this card like it's comparable to like Seeker of the Way?
I'm not saying I'm saying like we have other. I guess is comparable. I'm not saying it's as good as Secret of the Way, but
I know you're not saying that. I'm being a little facetious here, but I don't know. Kelly, what do you think here? Because it seems like you seem a little derisive.
I'm a little higher on him than you are.
Okay,
but I mean, to your Siege Runner point, he kind of undoes the damage done by Siege Runner. He gains back that 3 life too.
That's possible as well. But like, how much tempo do you lose paying 6 mana for this?
well, it's not like you have to do it all at once.
I understand, but like you're talking about turns. Like you're taking 2 turns to do this. That's happening.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it may not be like the best card, and I feel like a lot of these cards a lot of the cycle could just be sideboard cards and not necessarily main deck cards. Their power level varies basically on what's good and what's bad in the format, which is kind of interesting about them. They all have varying levels of playability, and I think they're all worth talking about. This one probably is pretty low because it feels kind of narrow, and we already have cards that are really good that kind of have this effect, like Valorous Stance. So it's hard to evaluate this one, I would say.
Fair enough.
Moving on. I'm sorry. I won't take over. I'll pass the ball back to you guys.
I'm really sad too because I really like this next one, and it would have been my turn. But whatever.
All right. No, I stole it, sir. You can still go.
Okay, awesome,
So, Myth Realized is the next card.
Man, I really like this card. So this is a 1-mana enchantment, 1 white. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a lore counter on Myth Realized. You can also add lore counters for the cost of a white and 2 colorless. Then it has this big ability at the end. Pay 1 white. Until end of turn, Myth Realized becomes a monk avatar creature in addition to its other types and gains this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lore counters on it. Man, I really like this card. Like I'm not when I say I like this card, I don't say that I think this is like a super powerful card or any, but I think this is a cool design and really is an interesting option for the kind of decks that are, we're going to talk about things like Narset, things that they want to have creatures to attack with, but also don't want to have creatures in their deck. Like this card looks really interesting. I've seen like Evan Aaron was saying that this card is like legacy and vintage playable. And I was like, geez, that seems a little crazy. But then it's like, well, turn 1 this, play a couple Moxes, activate, attack you for, like all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I guess it's a clock. You know what I mean? It was interesting to see how some people were so meh on this card, and other people were saying like, man, I can't wait to play this in vintage. Like, I can't remember a card that I've seen that drastic of a up and down on.
Yeah, I still don't really know what to think of this. I mean, part of me is like, wow, it's so cheap. It just costs 1. And, like, you don't really have to do anything. It's almost like – I really don't want to make this comparison, but, like, Tarmogoyf, if you just play Magic, right, like, to make it bigger. And it's kind of like this one. Like, you just put it out there, and then, like, over the course of a couple turns, it can get big enough where it's actually threatening. Now, that's also a downside as well because when you play it, it just doesn't do anything. So, I don't know. I mean, it could get pretty big. Then I don't know. It's a hard card to evaluate, to be honest.
Important to note that when you change it to a creature, it's still an enchantment creature, so you can't get around an erase or something.
Right. No, for sure, and that makes sense. But it's interesting because you could say like maybe Control wants this card, but like they tend to want a blank removal, so it'd be awkward. But then I could also see points in games where like this has like a ton of counters on it, and now your opponent can't tap out again. Like you don't even have to do anything. You just have this rattlesnake here that's like tap out. Go ahead. You're dead, right? So I don't know. I agree with you. This card feels like it's going to be great. It's going to be terrible. The fact that you literally just said like it's comparable to Tarmogoyf, but it's not really comparable to Tarmogoyf. Sort of sums up how I feel about this card entirely.
Yeah, I mean the fact that it cost only 1 to cast and then only 1 to activate, it makes it super interesting to me. And like I said, it does have the other clause where like you can just put counters on it. So if you are playing control and maybe like, okay, they didn't play a spell for me to counter. Okay, I'm going to end a turn and put a counter on this,
Which makes it useful if you draw like turn 10.
Right.
You don't, it's a 1-drop, but you don't have to play on turn 1 for it to be useful.
Yeah.
You can
Right.
still
Right.
play it later. It costs 1, tap the other 6 mana at the end of their turn. Have 2
And
counters.
it's another thing. It's like, do you want multiples of this? I guess if you have multiple in play, then they both would trigger. for every spell. It's like, I don't know. Like,
The question is, though, in the scenario we're discussing, where you're just adding a bunch of counters to it, does that make it better than even like Mastery of the Unseen? You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to evaluate there. Like, I don't know. This card, I like this card because it makes me just go, huh? Like, all right, you're there. I don't know what we're gonna do with you, but you just stay there in line.
I'm surprised this wasn't printed in Theros block.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the best enchantments that have been printed in a long time are all in this block.
Yeah.
Not the
Weird.
enchantment block.
This card kind of reminds me of the shrines.
Yeah, I would
A
agree
lot
with that.
in a lot of ways. And I mean, obviously a little better since you can, forcefully put counters on there without having to play spells. So it happens when you play spells, but also you can just pump a bunch of mana into it. So, and I think the shrines were only really, there was only one really Shrine of Burning Rage that ever really saw play. But this kind of
The blue shrine saw a lot of play.
oh, did it? I didn't
And
play
Twin.
a whole lot of standard.
It played standard twin.
Oh, okay, yeah. I wasn't
yeah.
really playing competitive back then.
Well, then don't make assessments.
Sorry, I was very assumptive. I apologize. I just remember Shred of Burning Rage being really
That was very good.
It's really bad when he said shrines, and I immediately thought of Kamigawa.
I know.
not Kamigawa, not those
Well,
shrines.
It's funny. They do look like shrines. They also remind me of the hidden the hidden enchantments from the Saga block, right? Where it's like, here's an enchantment. You meet these conditions, it becomes this creature, right? It's like, man. So I don't know. It's a cool design.
Like the opal.
Yeah.
Opal Titans or whatever.
Yeah, interesting. So let's move on. Our next card is Ojutai Exemplars.
All right, so this is our first mythic, I believe, right?
I think so.
All right, so he is a 4 mana, so it's 2 colorless, white for a 4/4 human monk, and has the ability of whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose one. Tap target creature, or Ojutai Exemplars gains first strike and lifelink until end of turn, or exile Ojutai Exemplars, then return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. This one, on the surface, seems very powerful. Like, it does all these crazy things. It has built-in, well, I guess not exactly built-in, but as long as you're playing a ton of spells, it's very hard to kill, since it can exile itself. Though I will note that it still dies to wrath effects, since it comes back immediately from the blink.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that the power level of this card is contextual on the format. I think, like, on the surface, I think it's powerful, but we'll see how the format shapes up.
I would agree. Like, it looks very powerful, but then like you compare it to just like Siege Rhino, and it's like, so I have to have spells to make this a good card, and Siege Rhino is just a 4/5 that. Okay, I'd rather have Siege Rhino.
Yeah, I'd rather just play Siege Rhino.
Yeah, and it has like weird, like, the tap target creature ability is pretty good for like getting in, but it's like, do you play that offensively? Like, you're gonna play spells like before you attack to like tap their creatures, or like, are you doing it end of turn? Like,
it'll make you play Magic in a way that you probably may have been told not to, which is you don't play your spells your first main phase unless you have to, and then you save everything else for after you attack. Mm-hmm. So that when cards force people to do that, a lot of the times it turns out to not be the card that you want to play.
You probably want to play a lot of Rebound with this card. Honestly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I could definitely see this playing out almost like how Secret the Way is, where like a lot of times with Secret Away, you just attack. And like they almost never block.
Yes.
And it's like if they like try to block this and then you just like give it first strike lifelink, kill one of their blockers.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That's pretty gross. So like I could definitely see it being like basically unblockable without saying unblockable on it. So.
All right. The next one I'll read because I put it on here, and we don't have to talk very long about it. But it's Orator of Ojutai, and it's 1 and a white for a 0/4 bird monk. And it has, as an additional cost to cast Orator of Ojutai, you may reveal a dragon card from your hand. And it has Defender and Flying. And then when it comes into the battlefield, if you reveal a dragon or you control a dragon when you cast it, as you cast it, you may draw a card. So the only reason I put it in here because Sean McLaren had it in his maybe, his maybes of standard, and he's like Wall of Omens. So obviously it's with condition, but it depends on how powerful the Dragon Lords end up being in standard. If you are playing, we kind of, as the standard goes forward, as deck builders, we have to see like what is the number of dragons you have to play to make this card effective. I think McLaren put in his article, if you play like 4 dragons, you're about 40% to have one in your opening hand. So obviously that's still pretty low, but it's important to know that this card kind of exists, even if it is just like an early defender.
I think the key difference here, and he mentioned this as well, is it has flying.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying it's good, but the fact that it can block, like, Mantis Riders and live make it at least worth a look. But this whole cycle of cards we'll talk about that has, like, reveal a dragon, most of them are not very, like, overwhelming. They're like, okay.
No.
Like, the spell you get when you show a dragon is pretty unreal, but without it, like, I don't think I'd ever want to play a 2-mana zero. Like, I never played an Angelic Wall, in any format that I could draft it, so...
Yeah, like I said, I just kind of wanted to push the one out, just for the sheer fact that Sean McLaren chose to talk about it. So I was like, I'd feel pretty bad if we didn't at least point it out. And it is if you reveal or control, which is important as well. So, moving on, pacifism.
So I mean, pacifism.
Do we really have to read this card? Yeah.
No, 1 and a white for an enchant creature. Enchanted creature cannot attack or block. This is sort of a staple of white removal, but it's interesting as we mentioned that 2-mana removal comes back.
Yeah.
Pacifism has rarely been like standard playable. Like every now and then it's there. I don't know if it's quite there yet, but
It was good against Boros Reckoner.
it was in fact good
Yes.
against Boros Reckoner. To be fair though, that format for a long time you also had the Bonds of Faith, which was just a much better pacifism because you could like pump your humans as well. So the only thing I want to say about this pacifism, again, beyond the fact that we can just say, hey, look at some of the 2-mana removal that's back, this pacifism is the one that's going directly into my battle box because it has the sweet flavor text. The if I fight, I might step on a butterfly. That would be sad. That is Kraug of the Qualsisma.
Now it's funny because there is definitely a Qualsima spell that prevents all damage in Fate Forge.
They don't want you to kill their butterflies.
so good.
You get a foil one of these, let me know, because I want it. I want it for that battle box.
It's important to know that this is probably one of the best white cards in Limited as well. So keep that in mind.
Every time pacifism's around, it's close to it's close to a first pick pickable card as a removal spell.
Yep.
So.
It's at common again.
Yeah.
Which is notable.
I don't. I see. A couple people have said that's notable. I don't think that's notable. Pacifism has been a common every single time I can think of it being printed.
I think like for limited purposes though, they could make it an uncommon.
They
It wouldn't be
could,
unreasonable.
But it's always felt like pacifism is the common effect, and an arrest is the uncommon effect. Like that's how it's always felt to me. So I don't know. It just seems like this would be a common consistently.
That's fair.
It's actually always been a common.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I know, but they've in recent years they've made Doomblade an uncommon.
Isn't Doomblade like 10 times better than this card though?
I'm just saying this is like an all-star in limited.
Yeah, it could have been shifted to uncommon, and no one would have really questioned it.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay, that's fair.
Next up, we have Radiant Purge, which we did already talk a little bit about, but we can read it for anyone that didn't hear that.
So Radiant Purge is a colorless and a white instant. Exile target multicolored creature or multicolored enchantment. So now, I don't know. I think so. When we first talked about this, we didn't have the full spoiler yet.
Right.
And after seeing the full set, I definitely think that. We see 2 multicolored. I guess it doesn't kill planeswalkers, but we see the Dragon Lords are all pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So killing them may be important. In the new standard, as well as killing some of the other good multicolored creatures that we've seen, Mantis Rider, Siege Rhino. Yeah. So again, it's a card that will be in consideration for white deck sideboards.
Yeah.
This reminds me of what's the one from Dragon's Maze? They sacrifice.
Renounce the guilds.
Yes, renounce the guilds. This reminds me of that a lot. Target is obviously better. But very similar. It saw a lot of sideboard play. When it was good, it was very good, and when it was bad, it was gone, disappeared.
Yeah, I was actually a huge fan of Renounce the Guilds when it first came out, but the awkward thing was that you often wanted it in the Detention Sphere deck, so it never really caught on as much as it could have. So maybe this time around, this is obviously a slightly different card, but I wouldn't be surprised to see sideboard play, but I don't think it's going to be a staple.
Yeah, no, it'll wax and wane, depending on what the format's doing. So, what?
Wax and wane.
That's people say these things. Anyway,
Magic players say these things.
I think white especially has a lot of weird sideboard options.
Yeah.
Like you get Glare of Heresy, you get Erase, and it's like, how many of these effects do you want? Like, do you want one of each? Like, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how this shows up.
Yeah, most certainly. Secure the Wastes.
Secure the Wastes is a white and X. It's an instant. Put X 1/1 white warrior creature tokens onto the battlefield. This card seems like inherently powerful. Like X spells that make creatures that are instants are not very common. I know one of the things I was finding out where this is good. Like I've seen, I thought like maybe try it in tokens, but even Sean McLaren today said that like most of the time it's going to be a very bad raise the alarm because it's 3 mana then instead of 2. So like how do you leverage that against it? But this card feels strong. Like I feel like it's got to be a home for it somewhere.
My first thought when I saw this card was like, oh, so like Jeskai tokens probably want like one of these, right? I'm not so sure. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like
You just play it. You just play it with Perforos. Done. Built you a deck.
super fireball.
Jeskai tokens never really has that much mana.
Yeah.
You want to stop at like 5 because you want to discard all your lands. So
That's true.
The one thing about this, though, if you're talking about Jeskai tokens, is the fact that you can just cast it as a 1-mana spell. So it's kind of nice as a scalable spell where it's like, okay, maybe you're going off and you just needed that 1-mana spell to trigger Ascendancy. This card does it. I'm not saying that's a higher upside, but it's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a powerful X spell. It just feels like it'll
What is it? It feels like there's another X spell like this, right?
White Sun Zenith.
Well, there was one that made tokens like this, but also destroyed creatures. Martial Coup.
Yeah, Martial Coup.
Feels like that.
Less destroying creatures.
Martial Coup's better. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
was
Martial Coup's a sorcery, though, correct?
Right.
So there's a trade-off there, but obviously being able to destroy all the other creatures obviously is much better.
All
It's
right.
like the cycle ability on Decree of Justice.
God, if it's a draw card, I'd be all in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Also not counterable. Yeah, please.
Well,
Oh,
okay.
Doctor. Silk Wrap.
So Silk Wrap is an enchantment for a colorless and a white. And it says, when Silk Wrap enters the battlefield, exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less an opponent controls until Silk Wrap leaves the battlefield. So this is basically the fixed Journey to Nowhere. I guess it's kind of the fixed one along with...
Fixed and neutered Journey
Fixed
to
and
Nowhere.
Nowhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
It's the opposite of Suspension Field.
Yeah.
Is it? Well, Suspension Field was
It's 3
toughness, right?
Toughness 3 or greater, and this one is...
This
3
one converted mana cost.
Oh, okay, but
So
it tends to... Okay, I guess I'm reading that a little bit differently, but it's still sort of like the opposite direction.
One gets bigger creatures, one gets smaller creatures.
Yeah,
Both
that's
of them hit Courser. Both of them can hit Courser Prefix.
Can I just point out that this is like... This poor guy in the art is definitely getting like Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, not the wallpaper!
I don't know what that means, but I'll agree with you.
Sailor Moon is an anime, and when they would
No, I
transform
know
into
what it is.
No. When they would transform into their Sailor Moon power thing, it would be like them getting wrapped in wallpaper for some weird reason. So, silk wrapping.
Yes.
Sure. Sounds interesting.
We'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I've definitely seen this card being like talked about and then like positioned in certain decks already. So I mean, it definitely could be powerful. It does catch a lot of cards. So we'll see what happens.
Big strike against this is that it doesn't hit Siege Rhino.
It does not hit Siege Rhino. That is correct. But I mean, so this allows you to use this as your early removal, and then maybe save your later removal for Siege Rhino. I don't know. I guess most of your early removal doesn't already hit Siege Rhino anyway. So it'll definitely still see play. I think. Since people are already trying to kind of messing with it already, so we'll see what happens with it though. And our last card for white is Surge of Righteousness, and it is the first in the hate cycle.
The hate cycle.
Which are similar cards like
Combust, Celestial Purge, like
those
Flash
cards.
Freeze. So Surge of Righteousness.
Yeah.
1 white and a colorless instant. Destroy target black or red creature that's attacking or blocking. You gain 2 life.
Yep.
So first off, this passes the kill Siege Rhino test, so that's nice. This card's exciting, at least to me, because the gain 2 life clause is pretty relevant. Like, those mono red decks that are going around, they're pretty aggressive, and being able to, like, okay, kill your guy, gain 2 life as an instant, either as the control deck or even like the bigger mid-range deck, it's a pretty good trade.
I mean, even against Siege Rhino, he undoes.
Yeah,
undoes that
a bit
too.
of it.
If you're at 3, sometimes you stabilize and they just play a Siege Rhino to burn you out.
Or you just die, right?
This will, at least gain that 2 life back.
I think it's really relevant. Like, this whole cycle, I felt, I actually saw, it was a McLaren who was actually pretty down on these.
Yeah.
And I was pretty surprised because, like, most of these, like, seemed pretty good and, like, seemed like, maybe that sweet spot of where they kind of want some of the removal to be, where it's just like, yeah, this is what you're going to get, but when it's good, it's going to be really good.
They are very conditional, though.
Oh, of course.
I think
yeah.
that was his main point. But.
Yeah, I'm not as high on this card. I don't. I mean, I could definitely see situations where it would be good, but having that clause of only hitting an attacking or blocking creature makes it really awkward because it makes you have to play in a certain way that, like maybe you hold up mana, then they don't attack, and then you just like wasted your 2 mana for the turn. You know what I mean?
It's also really awkward against Rabble Master because they can just keep sending goblins in, and Rabble Master never, like, if they think you have this, like, we're not going to get in there with Rabble Master. We're just going to make tokens. So that is true. That makes it a little awkward.
And like I was saying earlier, like White has so many like kind of weird sideboard cards. So it's like this is kind of in the mix with all those other ones. So it's like
Exactly.
I don't know where it really fits in here. I think this is definitely the worst of the cycle. But in my opinion, I mean, that's fine.
It's hard to just be like, no, we haven't talked about the whole cycle yet, but
No, I know. I'm just saying preemptively, this one's the worst.
Oh, okay. Well,
So they only get better from here. So
there you go. Congratulations. All right, so that was White. Let's move on to Blue, and we have a really good spell for Standard, and potentially for maybe Modern because it kind of replaces another card. But we have, it's been a spell that I think a lot of people have been waiting for. So, nothing. Anticipate is the spell.
No, I did the last one.
Okay, no. All right.
Anticipate.
Anticipate is a colorless and a blue instant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. I don't think this card is good.
This card is an automatic 4 of any control deck. So, not in Standard.
False.
In Standard.
I don't agree, but I think this is a card that is good if you're looking for a specific card. So if you're playing something like a Jeskai Ascendancy deck, where you basically have to hit your Jeskai Ascendancy, I think it is good in that style. But in Control, I think it's okay if you're running a lot of counter spells, because you can hold up your mana, and then if you don't have anything to counter, you can play this. But as just a general like card drawing spell, I don't think it's good. It's a cantrip that costs 2, which have never really been great since Impulse was legal.
I have to disagree with you.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know how you could be so wrong.
I mean, I agree.
Dude,
It's not the
I'm
most.
still right. You just don't even realize it yet.
Yeah.
I think it's all about context. Like, yeah, this card like, isn't even Impulse. That's fine. But
No,
this
yeah.
is by far the best thing we've had in Standard since. I mean, what? Honda rotated out. South Scour rotated out. This. I think you're also undervaluing. Like, look how many lands the control decks have to play right now to hit their land drops.
Yeah.
Like Sultai Control has to play for the most part. Satyr Wayfinder to hit lands. It has a lot of synergy, so it's fine. But they also have to play a pretty terrible card overall to be able to hit their land drops. McLaren was talking with us today in his article. You can now just say in the deck that's playing 27 or 28, you can cut down to 26. And play spells that you get to cycle for. Like this on turn 2 says I can keep a hand with this and a couple lands, and know that I'm going to hit my 3rd land drop or my 4th land drop.
That's a fair point. I just don't know if it'd be worth it playing this in your deck. It's super low power level in my opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, like sometimes you have to play cards that allow you to play other powerful cards. I mean, you cut down on lands, you play this, and then I mean, it's also important to note it is instant speed, so you get to hold up other things while you could be potentially playing this anyway, which makes it a little bit different than other cantrips that we've seen.
I think this works better with if you have good synergies in your deck for it, like Ascendancy, Ojutai, counter spells. I'm not completely sold on it just as being put in every control deck, because wasting your turn 2, sometimes your turn 3, because you're going to have tap lands for scry lands, might come back to hurt you. It's kind of slow in that regard.
It's very possible.
And it's not just like play a spell in your turn 1 mana Thought Scour just because you have 1 mana left over. This costs 2 more. This costs an extra mana. That's a big thing. But I do think the card's good. I think it's Standard hasn't had this type of effect for a while, so very welcome.
I will say I think you might see this card played in modern Escape Shift decks.
Yeah, that's as a replacement of Telling Time. Yeah,
Yeah, because they already play Telling Time. This card is better than Telling Time. It's close, actually. I feel like, but Telling Time wasn't played in Standard when it was legal. So, I don't know. I'm not as high on this card in Standard. I think it's fine in Escape Shift or really any style deck like that where you're looking for basically one thing, or like as like you just want to dig for specific cards.
I actually don't mind this in control decks less than a 4 of. Just as a little
Sure,
bit of
sure.
a
I've seen it as so that might have been a bit hasty. I've seen it in decks proposed already as like a 3 of or something like that. But it's definitely people who play control really want this card. They've really been asking for a card like this, and Wizards has been refusing them for the longest time to just give us a cheap card that we can use to draw cards and draw a card. But they have it now, and it may not be the best card in the world. It's not 1 mana, sure, but I mean, like, this is probably where they want this effect at now, because they've been just doing a lot of shifting with where they want things at. So, if this is what we get, then I think people are still pretty happy about it.
I think it's also important to note that it puts the cards back in the bottom of the library, and the versions of Control we've seen are very like sort of singleton heavy, whereas like you don't like look at Sultai Control. The lists are running like one Ugin. When you're Sad Wayfinder, put your Ugin in the yard, and you're just a sad panda. Is that what you're gonna say?
Well, I like Satyr Wayfinder more than
No. It's very good. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying like the synergy here is still pretty good. Like I definitely think this card is very good. I'm glad to see it in Standard. Like I said, maybe it's not a 4 of in all the control lists, but I'd much rather have a card like this sitting in Standard, knowing I could use it, than where we've been with cantrips.
Yeah. Moving on. The next card that we have is Dragon Lord's Prerogative. And this is another one of those reveal dragon or control a dragon cards. So we'll skip over most of that text. We'll just kind of get to the meat and potatoes of it. So
I have to point this out. We were asked by someone to mention Contradict.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. One of our listeners.
It was very long. He wanted to know if Contradict. Contradict is a sort of hilariously, this is the one that was circling around with people who thought it might be Force of Will because of the art, and it turned out to be a counterspell that costs 5 mana, 2 blue and 3 colorless. So
no alternate cost.
So he wanted to know if this was playable. I personally don't think it is. Like, drawing a card is good. Dismiss was a fine card. I don't think a 5 mana version of this is playable, personally. Like, did anybody else?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't think it's good enough either.
Yeah.
For a 5 mana counterspell to be good, it needs to be like really good. Like it's got to say like draw 2 cards on it,
or like bounce something, or be cryptic command.
Yeah. Then we're talking, but yeah.
All right.
So I just want to mention that. Sorry, no, we don't think it's playable. All right, so Dragon Lord's Prerogative, yes, 2 blue, 4 colorless, instant. The same, reveal a dragon. If you manage to reveal a dragon or control a dragon, it's uncounterable. Draw 4 cards.
Yeah.
So this is opportunity with upside?
Potential upside. Again, the weird dragon. Dragon
Well,
claws.
I mean, I think that is upside. Like, even if you're not going to use it, the fact that it's on the card makes it upside.
Sure,
there's no cost to it
Right.
being on the card. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all upside.
Is it? So I guess this is fighting with Jason's ingenuity for at least a couple more months.
Yeah, so I don't think the reason I put this card on the list because I don't think it's necessarily playable now, but it is a card to think back on when we have that weird rotation thing where this set doesn't rotate, but the set that has Treasure Cruise and Take Through Time rotates. We still have this card, and who knows what else, but it's important to know that it does exist.
And Opportunity has been standard playable
Many times.
many times. So this card's good. This card's good.
Yeah, I feel like Opportunity would have seen a lot more play if Sphinx's Revelation wasn't legal
Yeah.
for the same time that it was in Standard. But yeah, like, and I think especially like the blue dragons, I feel are very strong too. So those are the decks that are going to be playing dragons, and maybe not even necessarily, obviously you're not going to cast this early. It's a late game spell, so the chances of having a dragon in play or in your hand are a lot higher at that point in the game. versus something like the 04 guy that we talked about earlier. So
Especially like, if Ojutai proves to be very good, then this card will definitely be pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Encase in Ice.
all right, so
This is a Metallica song, right?
is this one mine?
Yeah, it's yours.
All right, so Encase in Ice is the blue hate card. It is colorless and a blue for an enchantment aura. Has flash, so you can play it as an instant. Enchant a red or green creature. When Encase in Ice enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature, and enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So right off the bat, my initial reaction was like, "Oh, cool! We can kill, quote unquote, kill Stormbreath Dragon with this."
Awkwardly, Stormbreath Dragon can still monsters through this though. So it's like what you do is you set a landmine for yourself. You're just like, cool. Please don't go off.
He like tries to bust out of the ice, but doesn't quite get there.
See, like the Flash, just like shaking.
You just freeze everything except for his mouth. And he just shoots you with his breath weapon while he's frozen in place.
You just forget about him. Like, oh man, oh no! I'm definitely going to just yell like I'm trapped under ice every time I play this card. It's going to happen. I'm going to be excited about it. I'm glad this is an answer, a cleaner answer, an answer where you don't give them a 2/2 creature for free. Right, Morgan?
Yes, correct.
Oh yeah, it's like
Yeah.
infinitely better than that card.
I didn't know. I just didn't know.
He just knows not.
I knew.
We tried to tell you.
Yeah, we did. We
Yeah.
did.
Well, I don't see Jeskai Sage blazing any constructed.
Give it time. Did you not see that there's also another 2-mana 1/1 that when it dies draws a card in this set?
It's flying though.
The LSV value deck is coming together.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't bet against that card just for the sheer fact that it's flying.
Prowess is better than flying.
Probably.
Yeah.
Still, I don't see it breaking through yet. So, yeah. I mean, again, we're kind of going to probably have a blanket statement about all these self-hate, not self-hate cards, but the
cards.
Well, those are what the Theros ones are. The Theros ones are self-hate cards.
I know. This sounds so funny.
That they
Why am I
are
so cold?
they're good. And ours are obviously sideboard cards. Some vary in power level compared to others. So we will see what happens with them. And but I would say always have a few of these around if possible, because you never know when you might want to throw a couple in your deck for the weekend. So, Mike, you want to take Icefall Regent?
All right, so Icefall Regent in this Regent cycle is sort of interesting. Icefall Regent is a 4/3 dragon, 2 blue and 3 colors to cast. Obviously, it's flying. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Icefall Regent. Then it says spells your opponent's cast. The target Icefall Regent costs 2 more to cast. So this dragon's sort of right in the middle of Dungeon Geist and Frost Titan.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell if it's good or not.
Both playable cards.
Yeah, I mean, Dungeon Geist was sweet for a while, and I'm a big fan of Frost Titan. Not being able to change the target is definitely a power down, but it never untapping as long as this in play is also interesting. I do like, though, as Frost Titan said, like whenever a spell would target it, it gets countered unless they pay 2. But this one just says it costs 2 more to play.
It's the Monastery Siege clause.
So it's kind of interesting because that stops certain spells from being like powerful enough to do anything. Like something like a Crater's Claws would have a difficult time killing this. And it also just means that you gain more time out of it. Like instead of being able to just be like, okay, like here's like ultimate price. Okay, 2 mana, kill your guy. It's like, oh well, now I've got to spend pretty much my whole turn killing it, even if I want to kill it. Which is interesting if you're the kind of deck looking for that sort of tempo. The body is certainly not exciting though.
No, not a 4/3. I wasn't necessarily bringing it up for the body, but the effect can be powerful, and it is another blue dragon that is potentially constructed playable for the other Dragon Claws cards. Dragon Claws.
That's Mark Rosewater for this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Frost Titan ability is like surprisingly it doesn't look like much on the surface, but once you play against it, you're like, oh man, this is super annoying.
This really sucks.
Yeah.
All right, it could be good. Definitely a card to watch. Moving on, Mirror Mockery.
So Mirror Mockery is An enchantment aura for a blue and a colorless. Enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, you may put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. Exile that token at end of combat.
Can I enchant every Siege Rhino with this card?
Is that even very good though?
Yeah, it's so. I have seen some discussion on this card about whether it's good or not, and
It wasn't necessarily a declaration of it being good or not. I just want to do it.
But, I mean, wouldn't pacifism just be better?
It's just a
Yes.
really bad pacifism.
Like, I've seen some people say, like, maybe you can play this in your exploit decks, or, like, your creature with exploit now makes a creature that can exploit itself.
But how? It
Or is
dies
exploit non-token?
well, it dies at the end of combat. You'd have
Yeah.
to play a creature during combat.
No,
to
whenever
exploit
it,
the
whenever it
token?
attacks, you
Yeah, so you put it on your own guy.
Token creature.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exploits. Oh.
I guess I'd check exploit. Exploit might be non-token, but there was still some synergy with getting to make exploit triggers happen over and over again. But this card, I don't know. I saw people really high in this card, and I'm like, I'd rather just have pacifism 9 times out of 10. Like, I'm sure there's some way to combo off for this card, and I really don't care. I do like that the art is essentially just like Link and Shadow Link. Like, that's what's happening here, right?
Basically.
But
Yeah.
I actually, like, I've seen a lot of people be excited about this card, and I have no idea why. I think this card's almost worthless.
For the record, exploit, you can sacrifice any creature.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there you go. So there's some synergy there, but I feel like this card is still fairly pointless.
It's very narrow if you're trying to use it in that way.
Yeah.
And any other way you're trying to use it is just picture this scenario. Okay, so say if you're wanting to put this on a Siege Rhino, right? And your opponent have some removal spells in hand that they can't use. Well, now you're almost like turning on. They can still attack if they want to, and you're getting a token, but I don't know.
But don't you only take one in that scenario?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess the Siege Rhino is a bad example, but if you have it on a creature, that they can still use their removal to get in damage, whereas just a simple pacifism would stop that from happening.
In theory, then in that clause, you wouldn't even take one. You would just gain 2 instead of gaining 3, right?
Well, he's saying that if
Oh, yeah,
they,
we
if
should
they
take
killed
it.
the
Yeah,
token.
Right,
That
I
was
think
a
in
bad
that
example.
scenario. They're more likely just
Yeah.
to kill their own creature.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
in all honesty.
I think this card's bad. I think this card's actually
yeah.
bad.
yeah.
If you play it, like if you take it in limited, like it's fine. Just recognize that you're taking a bad pacifism.
Yeah.
Like if you take this in a pack over a pacifism, you're wrong.
But it's a rare. It's got to be better.
Yeah, exactly.
There's probably some synergies in limited.
There is.
Put it
Actually,
on
the
your
exploit
back.
synergy is interesting, and I don't know. I just don't see. I just see this card being way too cute. And every time we've seen something like this, it really doesn't do very much. So, unless of course it's Splinter Twin, right? And that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. All
But
right.
I've seen that comparison. I just want to point that out. Not Splinter Twin.
No. All right, moving on. So we have Profaner of the Dead. Someone should read it.
Profaner of the Dead is a 3/3 Naga wizard. It costs 3 colors and a blue. It has exploit. So when this creature enters the battlefield, are you laughing at Naga wizard?
No, I'm laughing at the wheels are falling off when Morgan's not reading the cards.
When this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. When Profaner of the Dead exploits a creature, return to their owner's hands all creatures your opponent controls with toughness less than the exploited creature's toughness. And I think Dave described this card as the token killer.
That was my first thought. Actually, my first thought was looking at the illustration was the the prologue on Game of Thrones where the White Walker decapitates the guy and he's just holding the head there. That's totally what that is. But yeah, I think my reading the card for the first time, I was just like, man, that's just completely. That's just a wrath against tokens. Now, I think it's pretty narrow. And I don't think the card is very good otherwise. But if tokens somehow gets out of control, this is a card that people could sideboard to beat that deck.
This card, I will say, is also absolutely nuts and limited. You just draft like that. And Rotting Mastodon, not going to be back here for this draft format. But there's a number of high toughness guys where you can just be like, oh, cool, this. Cool, bounce your team.
You got the zombie turtle.
Yeah, Zombie Turtle. There we go.
Yeah.
And even we had a 0/4 flyer already. The Orator. It's just cool. I reveal a dragon, I'll draw a card, or I'll play this guy, sack it, bounce your board. This card feels kind of gross there, but I don't see this card making a big impact in Standard, unless swarms become the thing. It is sort of interesting that blue white could use this as a pseudo wrath that's a turn earlier and hostilities in that idea. You know what I mean? People were using Whelming Wave for a while. So it's sort of interesting that this is an option as well, especially if you want to play it in conjunction with something like Nyx Fleece for him.
That's cute. That's a cute thing you can do.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting card. So, I mean, again, my thought is that, sideboard against tokens, but we could see some other uses for it pop up, I'm sure.
All right, moving on. We have a Shore Crasher Elemental.
Oh, man. All right, so Shore Crasher Elemental is a blue
So sad.
It's an elemental, and it's a 3/3. It has a couple abilities here. So it does have Megamorph, and the Megamorph cost is 4 and a blue. It also has the ability of blue, exile Shore Crasher Elemental, then return it to the battlefield face down under its owner's control. And it also has colorless Shore Crasher Elemental, either gets +1, -1, or -1, +1 until end of turn.
It's Megamorphling.
Get out.
This card people have been freaking out about because they're like, Mono Blue Devotion's coming back, huh? No, I don't think so.
I mean, as soon as they print playable 1-drops and 2-drops,
They have
and Mutavault, it's coming back.
They have debatably playable 1-drops. They have like 2 unblockable guys because they have Shore Triton, Shore Stalker, and then they have the one in this set, which is a Megamorph that is 1 blue and is unblockable as well.
Would be happy to debate you on those.
I said debatable for a reason.
I don't think this card's that exciting.
Probably not. It's not, like, to me, it almost doesn't feel like a 3-drop because you kind of almost want it to be like a 4-drop,
Yeah, so
right?
you want to play it on 4-drop where you have 4 blue sources up. So the range of decks you'll be able to cast this in is 0 to 1.
Yeah, I don't know if mono blue is a thing again, but if it is because of this card.
Yes.
Like,
That's
nothing else. Like, the abilities are pretty exciting on this. I mean, in some ways, it kind of reminds me of Ash Cloud Phoenix in that it's like a morph that you don't really play as a morph ever. Like, you could just play this face up, and then it can be turned face down later in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's interesting in that respect. So, I don't know. It's a super cool card, I think. I mean, we'll just have to see if
we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I guess it's possible that you could play this in a 2-color deck if you're just like lightly splashing another color. But,
Meh.
I don't know. I'm not excited about this card.
No.
And I'll play against mono blue. I'll probably lose to a Master of the Waves, and I'll be sad. But but I still think if mono blue's a thing, like, this card's very powerful. But I actually disagree with you. I still think Master Waves is the card that makes it a thing, not this card. This card helps enable Master of the Waves. Don't get me wrong.
No, I think I think Master of Waves is great. But the reason why it's not played right now is because we just don't have enough cards with blue mana that are good enough.
Interestingly enough, you can get this guy up to a 5/5 with Master of the Waves.
I was gonna say
It's cute.
And then attack for 9.
Whee!
All right. Next card that a lot of people have been talking about because it reminds them of a good card. Slumgar Scorn.
This is everyone's Scorn. Blue, counterspell. Oh, wait, that's not what it is.
Oh.
That's
Sometimes.
blue instant. It says counter target spell unless the controller pays 1. However, it also has the Dragon Clause. And if you reveal a dragon or control a dragon, then it does become counterspell, which is sort of interesting. I don't think I'd ever want to pay blue for a Force Spike.
No.
That sounds terrible. However, a hard counterspell for 2 mana is something that has been very dangerous in Standard for a while. Like, we saw what Mana Leak did to the format. Now, please don't get me wrong. I saw the slight eye roll there from like I am not comparing this to Mana Leak, but I am saying the idea that you could have, like, think about like an Ojutai, right? Like with Dragon Lord Ojutai, which we'll get to, but the ability to have that creature in play and an attack with it, and then have counterspell, like hard counterspell up, is exciting. Whether or not that makes this card good enough, I don't really know. In Standard, you are likely to be able to counter things on curve because that's how Standard works. But it is a really bad draw when you're like, all right, I need to draw anything, and I drew Force Spike on turn 9.
Cool.
And all right, cool.
I died. Awesome.
Though, to be fair, if it's turn 9, then like
Most counter magic's not great. I get that, but
right, but like, I mean, You're probably gonna have a dragon somewhere.
That's fair.
At that point.
I mean, so are you high on this card?
I honestly, I have no idea how to evaluate this.
Yeah,
I think like the force spike is relevant. Like you could definitely get people with that. What were you gonna say, Morgan?
I think like most cards with the dragon claws just are like I don't know.
I kind of just want this as my playmat when I'm playing a control deck, just to put the fear in my opponents, so they cast all their spells with holding the extra one up.
Like to me, this is like the perfect card to play one of. Like you like back in the day, you just play the one of force spike, so you get them one time, and then like they're just afraid of force spike the whole time, even though you only have one in your whole deck. For 2 mana is something that we haven't. I mean, I guess counter anything. I guess we've had like negate and things like that.
Yeah, that's sorry. I guess that's what I meant because we even had like
Nullify.
what's the ferocious one?
Stubborn denial.
Stubborn denial, which is also been pretty good in a lot of cases in this format.
Yeah, this I don't know. Like, I think that this set more just in general, like more than any set that I can remember recently, has like so many cards that are just like I can't tell if this card's good or not. Like this is definitely a set we're gonna have to play with the cards a bunch before we can really figure that out.
Yeah,
but this one feels like it could be really good.
Really benefits us for having to play this the first week in a really competitive tournament.
Yeah, there's a lot of context here, a lot of ways to customize the deck for a specific metagame that you expect to face.
Again, really great for a week 1 format that we have to play at a highly competitive tournament. Thank you. Thank you,
Not to mention Legacy, which we don't play.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, great. I'm glad we're lost.
It's going to be good times.
So we're lost in both formats. That's exciting. Oh, man. All right. I think we already mentioned Youthful Scholar, unless you guys really want to talk about him a lot more. So this will be the last card in blue. Okay. Stratus Dancer. This is the blue Power Ranger. I mean, this is the blue Blue Ranger. So take it away.
Sure, Steve.
So Stratus Dancer is blue and a colorless, 2/1 with flying. He's a Jin monk, has Megamorph, and the Megamorph cost is a blue and a colorless. When Stratus Dancer is turned face up, counter target instant or sorcery spell. So, I believe we talked about this card.
Yeah, a little
We
bit.
did. We
before,
did.
and I think it is. It's definitely interesting. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure on this one.
Yeah,
Like
I definitely when I saw it, I did really like it. This was another one of those cards that people have also been talking about for mono blue because it can be played as wrath protection because you can on the play it on your turn 5 and then have the mana up to flip it to stop the end hostilities or crux or something like that.
yeah, there definitely were versions of mono blue that played Vaporkin. So
Yeah.
This is basically a strict upgrade to Vaporkin.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it does. I believe I mentioned before that having a 2/1 flyer for 2 mana is not terrible, and having the option to morph it and counter a spell later in the game is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. Again, I feel like with all these the rare Megamorph cycle, they are going to vary in playability throughout the season. So I definitely think this one is playable.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, awesome. So blue is certainly looking interesting. I think I like a lot of blue's elements for limited too. So there's a lot of good commons and commons we do encourage you guys to look at when going forward. And LSV already actually has his article out on Channel Fireball for the limited set review, so definitely check that out. But I kind of like blue as a limited color this go around.
I think like blue got a lot more tools for constructed
as well
versus Fate Reforged. Fate Reforged was just like garbage for the most part.
Blue is a color in Magic? Oh. Yeah, so let's move into black. First, we're going to talk about Bloodchin Fanatic.
So I don't understand these blood chins. That's a really weird clan. Like, we have blood in our chins. That's we never washed
because
off.
they're drinking it from their fallen enemies.
Oh man!
Yeah.
I
Or
thought they
licking their swords.
I thought they just like cut it shaving.
Razor burn Fanatic.
Nice. So Bloodchin Fanatic is double black and a colorless for a 3/3 orc warrior. It has an interesting ability though. Pay a black and colorless, sacrifice another warrior creature. Target player loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the power, the sacrificed creature's power. Now, this to me feels like the 3-drop that the Warrior deck wants. Not Arishin, but this guy who comes in as a 3/3, so the body's better. I know not having double strike, but that ability I think is it's real. Looking at the Warriors you'd be playing, it's pretty much always at least a shock, or I guess a vicious hunger, if you will. Okay, I know you like that one. And having that sort of reach is a little scary. For those decks, there were a couple of times that Timurat was still sort of a threatening card. Against Standard, it's made itself known a few times where, hey, we could just start throwing guys at you. You know what I mean? And this is more efficient than Timurat is.
Murder King don't care.
This Bloodshin guy doesn't care either. He's gonna cut his own chin. He doesn't give a shit. So I think this card's definitely interesting. There definitely is a Warrior deck there. Whether that Warrior deck is good or not, I have no idea.
Right.
But this one, and of course our next card, seem to be pretty good for making that a deck.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go into the next one, and we can kind of talk about them together. Next card is Bloodshin Rager.
So angry.
I've had a few Bloodshin Ragers in my time.
So,
What?
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, you've never the term to go on a Rager?
Yeah, I don't know how you do it with Bloodshins. I don't understand.
You get wild crazy. I don't know what to tell you.
But this guy is licking the sword, so that's probably why. But
Definitely thought that was an orc. Nope, just a human.
Yeah.
orcs and humans living together.
Mass hysteria.
Anyway.
All right, so Bloodshin Rager is a black and a colorless 2/2 human warrior, of course. Whenever Bloodshin Rager attacks, each warrior creature you control can't be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures.
So Pirate Heart Wolf is a familiar effect where this happened, right?
Yeah, definitely a very relevant ability for playing an aggressive deck.
Yeah.
Makes it super annoying for your opponent to, obviously
Block your creatures.
You could have played this card with the Devotion one. I can't think of his name. What was it?
Mogus Marauder.
Thank you. With Mogus Marauder in the same format for a little while. That doesn't sound fun to me.
Is that guy a warrior?
No, I think he's a berserker, but he's a human.
Let's see. Oh yeah, he's a berserker.
Yeah.
He's not part of the warrior clan. Nah,
Berserker.
So
we can't go too far into that joke without it.
My love is like a ticking clock.
Yeah.
I definitely think that there is a mono black warriors deck that exists.
It could be that human deck still, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like the obelisk desk.
You got this nice obelisk desk. It's all flat. Some made of stone. Nothing falls off of it.
Gives all my books on top of it, +2/+2.
I do want to mention another, probably like one of the best black warriors we have available was Bloodsoak Champion.
Yeah.
Which plays really nicely with the Bloodshin Fanatic, since you can keep bringing them back.
That it does.
Yeah.
So
For 4 mana, it's recurable, shoot you every turn.
yeah, the tools are there, and I feel like a black-red aggressive deck has been right on the cusp for a while, and it definitely got some tools in this set, and it's something I'm definitely going to explore. Looking at new standard and
Goblin
potentially-
Rabblemaster is in fact
is
a warrior.
Yeah.
God. I have to block him with 2 creatures?
Yeah.
Do that all day, every day. So, moving on. Let's go into, I think, Damnable Pact is the next
Are
one.
we allowed to say this?
Yeah, we have to. It's the name of the card.
All right, Damnable Pact, black X sorcery. Target player draws X cards and loses X life. This card is going to get a lot of hype because it has 2 really interesting abilities. Drawing X cards is pretty good.
Yeah.
I know playing Cube with both of your guys' Cube, Skeleton Scrying, still awesome to cast. Okay. However, the fact that it also target player loses X life, we've both also been at the end where you could just, we talked about opportunity before. I've killed people with opportunity. You target them, they draw cards, or they lose that life.
You can definitely do the double kill too.
The more comparably, I've killed people with Sign in Blood. It
There you
feels
go.
great.
Go ahead, Keller.
No, I'll say, it gives you an out to that green-white devotion deck. If they have 400 life and they're breaking Star Cities, UI, or whatever, you can still just build them out.
Spill them out. This is interesting because we still, for at least a little while, have Nykthos and combined with this. Now, granted, Black Devotion's not as strong as it was. The lack of Night Veil Spectre obviously hurts it, but and honestly, a bigger. We talk about Absent Control. I could see Absent Control playing a card like this as a one-of. You're playing Siege Rhinos. Man, letting that deck draw 4 or 5 cards at a time, gross. or giving the deck with 4 Siege Rhinos reach, also gross. You can't play many of this card because it's super clunky and does not do very much. Like at 3 mana, it's like you look at it compared to like Read the Bones, and it's pathetically bad. But man, having one of these I think it adds another element to those decks.
Yeah, it's definitely a card that can completely break open a late game like stalemate. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I could definitely see it as like a one of in those style of decks for sure.
Sweet. I'm kind of that makes sense to me. Next card, Deathbringer Regent. So another one of the Regent cycle. It's obviously a Dagron. So next up.
All right, so
We talked about this one before. I'm just throwing it out there. This was the pre-release promo.
Yeah.
okay.
So
I
we don't
think
talk a whole
Keller
lot
has
about
some
it.
opinions on this one.
All right.
Right?
So I was
going to say what it is, or
I guess go ahead.
it's a 5 colorless black. So it's 7 mana, 5/6 flyer, dragon, obviously. When Deathbringer Regent enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand and there are 5 or more other creatures on the battlefield, destroy all other creatures.
So we were all talking about this green